again. So I thought I would do a sprint. I've never done these before. I'm gonna read with you guys, or you guys are gonna read with me. I don't know how this works. I'm so bad at vlogging. So I set the camera farther back so you can kind of see me reading, and maybe I'll bring it down a bit so you can actually like see the process. I like watching people read. I think it's fascinating, and yet I think it's boring when I'm doing it, you know? So I figured I would read for, I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes. And I'm going to read 20 minutes from each book to see which one I want to continue with. Now, I know I have to read this. I absolutely have to catch up with this. Ashley is taking today off from reading this book because I do have to catch up. I swear, and I'm so sorry, Ashley. I think I'm like 4 days behind. I don't know. She said she's already in the FBI information, so I really got to kick butt on here. So I'm going to read 20 pages for each book and see which one I like the best, and kind of like put it in order of what I find is more interesting, and go from there. And by the way, I realized I have so many bookmarks. Like when I was looking for bookmarks for these books like 2 minutes ago, I was like, oh, I'm probably not going to have enough bookmarks. No, I have plenty. And it's funny because my entire graveyard shelf has bookmarks in it. All of the books have a bookmark. There's a pile of books on the floor next to my computer that too are supposed to be on the graveyard bookshelf, but there's no room, and so they're just kind of sitting there. They all have bookmarks in it. Some books, even on my shelves, have bookmarks in it because I planned to read them for a readathon, and then I never did, and because I didn't even start the book, I just kind of pushed it back onto the shelf, but with the bookmarks still inside. So that comes with the territory of being a booktuber, right? So many damn books. Okay, so I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. And I'm actually not going to start with this book because I know I don't like it. So I'll start with something else. I'll start with this one. See how well I like it. 20 minutes isn't a very long time. Normally sprints are about an hour. But I want to, you know, kind of check out every single book. All right. I'm ready to go. And now. Octavia E. Butler. Is she burnt? Did she, like, was she in a fire and that's why her hair is gone? I don't know. Okay, well, it's been 20 minutes. I am now on page 11. I never said I was a fast reader. I don't know if 11 pages is a lot. I mean, granted, there are many, 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 many words per page. I'm really enjoying this book. I'm upset that I didn't start it earlier. So far we have a little girl, around 10 or 11. I don't know her actual age. She has found herself naked in the woods with a lot of injuries, and she can't remember anything. And yeah, she's killed 2 deer and she's eaten them, and she's decided that she wants to leave the woods and go find people, and a man ends up picking her up, and she gets in the car with them, and he's asking her all these questions, but she has like amnesia. She doesn't remember anything before meeting him, other than, you know, she can recollect certain words like road and car and rocks and mud and bushes and stuff like that, but she doesn't know anything before that. Anyways, he's decided that she is in need of help, and he wants to take her to the hospital or the police station, and she is not interested in going. She's afraid to go, and so she bites him on his hand, and he is kind of freaking out, wondering what's this all about. She doesn't know yet, I think, how to bite humans, like on the neck, because this is a vampire story. So I'm curious to find out more about what she's planning on doing. I really hate stopping in the middle of a chapter, so I'm going to finish the last 2 pages in this chapter, and then I will start the timer for another 20 minutes. I'll see you soon. Okay, so I finished the last 2 chapters, the last 2 pages of the chapter that I was on. So now I'm currently on chapter 3. Really liking this book. I like that the man that picked up the little girl called her Renee, and he said that the Renee means rebirth, because I picked this for the challenge change, and yeah, change is also a rebirth. So how fitting. Love. All right. So yeah, if you guys don't remember, this is a vampire book. It is 310 pages long. There's 1,000,000 words per page, but it does read very quickly, and the writing is very easy to read. There are books that are confusing, that are harder to read, and when I say harder to read, I mean just like you read it and then you're like, okay, wait, what did that mean? And then you have to reread it again. I've read a lot of books that are like that, where they're like, they're not bizarre. I don't want to say these books are bizarre. They're just strange, and because it doesn't immediately come to my mind as understanding, I tend to enjoy the book for what it is, for it being strange and weird and creepy or whatever, and then I have to like kind of come back and say, well, what am I reading right now? For example, I am in the middle of reading Briefing for a Descent into Hell, and that is by Doris Lessing. I picked that book up, I want to say last year, the year before, like 2 or 3 years ago. I picked that book up and I read halfway through it, and it's just so strange. It's about a man who is on a boat, and he finds that all of the people on the boat are gone, and then he finds himself in the ocean, and then a dolphin like takes him to this beach, and then he's on this beach, and he ends up in this ruin, and there's all these like monkey kind of creatures that are fighting. So there's like a battle, and he's worried that he's going to be killed by these things, but also they think he's kind of like godlike in their animal brains, so they kind of stay away from him. It's so weird. And then there's this crystal that ends up showing up after he cleans this part of the ruin. I don't know if this part is like the temple or something, but he cleans the floor and this crystal comes, and then he's supposed to be absorbed into this crystal, but he's waiting for this particular like full moon, and it's not coming, and he misses it because he sleeps through it or something. And this whole thing is also within the story of him being found on the shores of some like regular town, and he's in this mental hospital, and the doctors are like asking him questions like, who are you, what's your name, and he's giving them the story of his past, where he's been with these animals in this island and riding on a dolphin to get there, and it's just so bizarre. And I think he like catches a bird because the alien crystal won't accept him, and so he rides on a bird somewhere else. It's so weird that I had to put it down because I just couldn't understand what was going on. And to think that I even remember all of this. I'm really good at remembering details about books, maybe not necessarily the name of the characters from the book, unless it's like constantly talked about. But I don't think I know his name, and that's why it's confusing. But I'm also currently reading in the dark, in the woods, in a house in the dark in the woods, something like that. I'm almost done with it. I only have like 2 or 3 chapters left of that book, and it's been taking me a good while to read that one as well, like a couple of months. So I really enjoy weird, strange stories, but sometimes it does take me a long time to get through them. Anywho, I'm going to do my 20-minute sprint on Are You Sleeping by Kathleen Barber. And yeah, so let me set that timer, and we'll do another little sprint. And again, I'll be fast forwarding all this, so you don't have to sit there with me for 20 minutes bored. There we go. Now look at this one's a Totoro bookmark. This one's magnetic. I like these ones. This is supposed to be a mystery. Came out in 2017. So this takes place in October. So I'm going to consider this an autumn read. Yeah. So I like that the beginning of this story, we're not even at chapter 2 yet. This is kind of like the prologue, but it's an excerpt from a transcript. So it's going to be a episode. I don't know if it's being filmed or what. I guess you could make blogs episodes as well if you're talking about something. But this is the introduction to the Chuck Barman murder that took place in September of 2015. Oh no, the murder was in 2002, but this is taking place in September, again in autumn. September is fall. So yay, I found a fall book, and I didn't really, I didn't know. So let's continue on to chapter 1. Question. Why is it that a lot of the books that I read, the wives are at home and the husbands are off doing some kind of aid work in like a third world country? I don't know if well, I guess it is third world. So I read The Magic Feather, which is the sequel to Gwendy's Button Box, so it's Gwendy's Magic Feather. And her husband was in Peru, I think, in South America, filming something for something. And in this one, the husband is in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, he's overseeing aid workers. And then there was another book that I read recently, White is for Witching, where the mom supposedly had gone off, like she was a journalist, and she was murdered wherever she went on some kind of, like all these parents are, or I don't know if this main character has any kids, but yeah, the other half, or the mate, the spouse, whatever you want to call them, they're murdered or you're killed, or they're off on a trip. I don't know anybody who does that, so it's very far-fetched to me. I know people do it. People travel around the world all the time doing aid work, or they work in missionaries or what have you. People travel all over the globe. But reading it in a book, I'm like, what? Come on now. That doesn't, but it does happen. It's hard to accept for me personally, because I live in such a small bubble of the world, I'm like sheltered if you will. Caleb is from New Zealand. My brother-in-law, Eric, is from New Zealand. Two doses of NyQuil. You shouldn't be taking NyQuil to fall asleep. There are other items that you can take, but I guess NyQuil will do. I think NyQuil is disgusting. I don't mind swallowing the pills, but the liquid is horrific. When Caleb and I moved from Auckland to New York 2 years ago, so she's from New Zealand as well? Or did she... Knowing what I know about New Zealand, you can't move there permanently unless you have a trade. And I've said this before on my channel. You have to have a trade, and it has to be approved in order for you to move there, and you also have to be under 25 with no health issues, because New Zealand doesn't want to take care of people who are sick. I find that fascinating. So I wonder if she met Caleb on a trip there, and then she kind of just stayed with him, and then they both moved to New York 2 years later. I don't know. But it's fun. This is the one time I can say, hey, I've been to that country, because I've never been anywhere besides California. Well, that's a lie. I've lived in Hawaii, obviously, that's where I'm from. I've lived in California. I've lived in Georgia. I've driven from Washington State all the way to Georgia. So I have gone through a lot of the states. I have visited states, you know, for national park reasons. I've been to TJ, but I don't really consider that Mexico because it's right there on the border, and I didn't go very far into TJ. Tijuana, if you guys don't know what TJ stands for. And then, so yeah, New Zealand was like my first real trip outside of the United States. And to see it in this book is very exciting, because I can say, hey, I went to Auckland. What other places are they going to talk about? Because I've been there. Yeah. Tangent. Let's continue. Why is everybody always running in stories? I mean, I like to run, but that's like the typical thing for someone to do in a book for exercise. They don't talk about, oh, I went to the gym, or I got on my bike and I took a ride through whatever. It's always like, I laced up my shoes and went for a run. It seems kind of lazy. Do all authors run? Do they, or is it just something that a lot of people have access to? Like, if you have shoes and you have legs, you can go for a run. I don't know. It seems lazy to me when people talk about running in general as their form of activity. I used to do cycling, which was really fun. I woke up every morning at 5 a.m. and I would meet my friend from work, and we would go from 5:30 to 6:15. So for 45 minutes we would cycle, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot, like, I would be so exhausted afterwards, but I didn't see any transformation of my body, so I kind of stopped doing it. Plus, you know, with COVID, all of the gyms shut down, and then after it didn't come back. It did come back for a little bit, but then they said, oh, we're probably going to shut down again. And I wasn't going to pay to go work out with a mask on, because I could barely walk around the zoo for 4 hours yesterday with a mask on without dying. I had to keep pulling the mask off when nobody was around to breathe for a little bit. It was like, oh, clean air, I'm so excited. And then I put the mask back on. So I couldn't imagine trying to work out in a gym around a bunch of people with a mask on. Everyone huffing and puffing, like in close vicinity, in a place that has a roof. So all of the air is still everyone's air mixed together instead of like a breeze coming through. I'm only on page 5. This is probably the reason why it takes me so long to read, because I stop and I think about things. Ooh, she works at a bookstore. Okay, so she's already said something about rubbing elbows with Maggie Gyllenhaal in the Brooklyn's farmers market, and now she's talking about how her outfits were going to fluctuate with my mood, but often resembled those of Christina Applegate's character in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Do you guys remember that movie? I really liked that movie. Like, she didn't know what she was doing. The babysitter died, but she had to pay the bills for food and stuff like that. So she's a teenager, and she gets a job in a professional setting that she's never worked in her life, and somehow she gets another person to do all of her work for her, and then she takes that work to a boss. Like, there's folders. I don't even know what she does. I thought it was like fashion, but I haven't seen that movie since I was like 13, so I don't know what is happening in that book. I only have 4 minutes left, and I haven't even finished this chapter. It's so long. Oh my god. All right, I need to stop talking. She said she worked with Clara, whose gorgeous Ethiopian features an impressive collection of literary themed t-shirts I envied. I have met so many Ethiopians while in college, and they are all so gorgeous. Like, how is that possible? How can a country be full of beautiful people? It's amazing. Yeah, their skin is fabulous. Fabulous and shiny and beautiful. All right. 20 minutes is now over. I'm only on page 8, and that is because I was talking to you guys and thinking there are still, wow. Wow. Okay, there's still a ton. There's 20 more pages before I reach the end of this chapter. So I'm going to see you guys in 20 pages, and I'll tell you what I thought, and I will start the next book. Okay. So I just finished the first chapter of Are You Sleeping? It kind of reminds me of Gillian Flynn and not Sharp Objects, the other one. What's the other one called? Ugh, I have to look it up because it'll kill me if I don't figure it out. It says... I was going to say Dark, but I couldn't remember the places part. Anyways, it reminds me of Dark Places because there is a witness to a murder that takes place, and we don't know if the witness account is real or not because it's from a child's point of view, and the person who is framed for the murder is put in jail, and this is 13 years later, and which doesn't make any sense, because if the kids were 13, then that would be 26, but the main character said she's 30 or in her early 30s or is close to being 30. I don't remember what it said, but I'm assuming she's 30 because that's what I read. And so then that means that it's been longer than that. Maybe it took him a few years in jail before he was sent to prison, and he's only had 13 years in prison for the murder. I don't know how long it takes for murder cases to go through sometimes. Anyways, this reminds me of Dark Places. I hated the book Dark Places. I found the main character, Libby Day, to be completely obnoxious. All of the characters in that book are completely obnoxious. All of Gillian Flynn's characters are completely obnoxious. Thank God for her storyline, because I don't think people would read her books otherwise. None of her characters are ever good, and they have no redeeming qualities. So in this one, it's about two twin girls who are home with their father when he's murdered. And the mom shows up after the fact, and the girls finally confess, or at least one of them confesses to the police that she knows who killed her father. She points out her neighbor, Warren Cave, and says he's the one who did it, and she knows details that she wouldn't have known unless she had seen what had happened. And so they found Warren's fingerprints all over the house in places that just doesn't make any sense. And then they arrest him. It's all circumstantial evidence. They don't have a weapon. They don't really have anything else besides the daughter's eyewitness and the fact that he has fingerprints all over and that he tried to escape from the police. So yeah, very interesting. The first chapter is 28 pages long, which seems ridiculous. This book, I showed you guys the beginning. The prologue is the excerpt of the transcript. It's called Reconsidered, the Chuck Broman Murder Episode 1. So this is actually a podcast, not a TV show. I've never listened to a podcast before. I don't find listening to people just randomly talking entertaining. One of the reasons why I don't like to listen to radio stations, because I don't care what the DJ has to say. But if I was to watch them do a podcast like I do with Simply Nailogical, she has a podcast and her and Ben talk about topics, but I get to see their faces, so I'm watching the podcast, which I find a lot more entertaining than just listening to someone's voice. Anywho, so far so good. I'm interested to find out if Warren is really the bad guy or not, but out of the first two that I've read, this one is way more interesting than this one. So I'm going to put this one on top. Alright, the next book I will be reading is Foxlow. I didn't tell you guys the title or the author when I was giving you guys my TBR video for this. So I'm telling you now, Eleanor Wasserberg. And the book is called Foxlow. Alright, this, I only have 20 more minutes left on my camera, like on my memory card, which is perfect because I'm going to hit my timer here for 20 minutes, and let's go. Ooh, God, look how big these words are. Wow. If I can't read this quickly, I don't know what? I don't know what I'm saying. Never mind. So this book also, well, it doesn't take place. It's taking place during the solstices. So they are gathering for the winter solstice. But one of the characters' name is October, and I guess it doesn't count. I'm pretty sure I talked about that the first time I was reading this. my memory card is going to be full in 2 minutes. So instead of me telling you about chapter 1 now, I'm going to put all this into my computer and I'll come back and tell you in a minute. Well, like 20 minutes.